The arena of 1,000 wars had existed long before recorded history. It was older than the renowned Zeri war caste, older even than the first grand conquests of their ancestors. Hewn meticulously from the obsidian remains of a deceased world, its towering walls were inscribed with jagged, glowing glyphs. These carvings flickered dimly, seemingly recalling every drop of blood spilled in countless battles past. Within these walls, warriors had ascended into legend, others had fallen into infamy, and some had met such gruesome ends that historians still struggled to capture the horror adequately in words. The alien girl had witnessed it all. Standing at the observation railing, she appeared indifferent, her arms folded across her chest, her expression inscrutable under the pale luminescence emitted by her ocular implants. Around her, the arena spectators erupted in cacophonous excitement, a chaotic chorus of snarls, roars, and guttural cheers filling the air. Down below, in the enormous fighting pit, another combat was about to commence, and for the first time, she felt perplexed. The new contender was a human. She had, of course, read extensively about their species. Most advanced civilizations had at least some knowledge of humanity, known primarily as the galaxy's comic relief. Humans were neither the weakest nor particularly strong among the galaxy's diverse inhabitants. They lacked the natural armaments of the Dreer, the psychic prowess of the Voson, or the technological sophistication of the Saurians. True, humans were adaptable creatures, but adaptability was rarely impressive when one's lifeblood spilled across the battlefield. Yet here he stood, the human combatant. He was notably tall, but not extraordinarily so, muscular, yet not exceptionally powerful. His face appeared lean, weathered, wearing an expression akin to someone learning their favorite sandwich shop had abruptly closed. Opposite him stood his formidable adversary, a Zeri war beast. It towered more than twice the human's height, an armored behemoth of pure muscle and plated armor. Its jeweled tusks jutted outward like living blades, and its massive forearms flexed restlessly in anticipation of violence. Clearly, this creature was superior in every quantifiable aspect. The fight surely would conclude swiftly. She exhaled softly, bracing for the one-sided brutality. Then, unexpectedly, the human spoke. So, ground rules? He casually rolled his shoulders and stretched his arms. Are we keeping this honorable, or is this a kill or be killed sort of thing? The war beast snarled, its voice echoing like grinding metal. You die screaming. He nodded thoughtfully. Right, cool, standard Tuesday. Then, without further warning, the fight erupted, an outcome no spectator had anticipated. The Zeri war beast lunged, defying physics with its terrifying speed. Its claws blurred violently toward the human's skull, aiming for a swift, decisive kill. But impossibly, inexplicably, the human wasn't there. He twisted aside, ducking smoothly beneath the blow, his movements precise yet effortless. Then, instead of retreating to safety, he stepped forward beneath the beast's arm. To everyone's stunned disbelief, he delivered not a punch nor a kick, but an open-handed, cheerful slap right to the beast's ribs. Boop, he exclaimed brightly. The war beast faltered, staggered not from physical injury, but sheer astonishment. What? The human's grin widened. Not a fan. That's unfortunate. I've got plenty more. The enraged creature spun wildly, intent on crushing its smaller adversary with a powerful backhand. Yet again, the human deftly ducked beneath the attack, delivering another humiliating slap, this one landing squarely upon the beast's head. Around them, the roaring spectators fell abruptly silent. Observing intently, the alien girl narrowed her eyes, The human wasn't just evading, he was intentionally toying with the Zeri war beast. It wasn't arrogance driving his actions, but calculated strategy. Each irritating tap, each playful slap, disrupted the war beast's rhythm, frustrating and distracting it from leveraging its superior physical power. Zeri warriors were not known for subtlety or trickery. Their combat doctrine emphasized ruthless efficiency. Yet this human, through seemingly trivial antics, had transformed one of their most formidable warriors into a fumbling, enraged fool before their very eyes. The beast swung desperately now, abandoning precision for brute force, each attack more reckless than the last, and each failure earned a calm, deliberately insulting retaliation from the human. Taps, nudges, casual sidesteps. Then, with humiliating simplicity, the human sidestepped a powerful charge, tripped the beast effortlessly, and sent it crashing face-first into the dirt. "Oh no, buddy," the human remarked in mock sympathy, crouching just outside the beast's reach. "That looked terribly embarrassing. Don't worry, I promise not to tell anyone." He gestured expansively at the roaring, frenzied spectators. "Except, all these guys." Furious, the war beast lunged once more, but again, the human smoothly evaded. This time, however, his counterattack was swift, precise, and brutal. A sharp kick to the knee, a sudden jab to the creature's throat, a quick pivot, and finally, an elbow to the base of its skull. The war beast staggered, fell, and didn't rise again. A stunned silence fell over the arena. Spectators ceased their screaming, and the alien girl, feeling genuine astonishment for the first time in years, gripped the railing tightly, her ocular implants fixated upon the human below. Standing calmly over his fallen opponent, the human exhaled as though finishing a casual workout. Then, turning to the audience platform, he spotted the alien girl. His eyes lingered on her for just a moment longer than others before offering a lazy, irreverent salute. The crowd descended into chaos, some enraged, some ecstatic. Tacticians and warlords muttered urgently, attempting to rationalize what had transpired. But the alien girl stood frozen, struck by a sudden disquieting revelation. She'd seen countless warriors, feared none, yet this human baffled her. She had no idea what he was. The defeated Zeri beast was dragged away by armored attendants, leaving deep trails in the arena sand. Meanwhile, the victorious human casually stretched, completely at ease, as if recovering from a morning jog, rather than a brutal gladiatorial contest. Below, he shielded his eyes against the glaring arena lights, and met her gaze once again. Then, in full view of the thousands gathered, he winked. Her grip on the railing tightened painfully. She had seen countless warriors across endless battles, but this human, this absurd, reckless creature, she realized now that he was unlike anything she had ever encountered before. Because for the first time in memory, a simple human had unsettled the traditions and expectations of an entire culture, and no one, not even the alien girl herself, knew exactly what he was. The next opponent was clearly more formidable, larger, fiercer, and deadlier. It towered above the human, a reptilian warrior clad in emerald green scales, its hunched back reinforced with cybernetic armor plates. Its claws crackled ominously with plasma-charged enhancements. This creature was no mere brute. It was a meticulously engineered gladiator designed solely for battle and destruction. Observing his intimidating adversary, the human tilted his head thoughtfully and pointed casually toward it. "Okay," he remarked loudly, "that thing definitely looks like it eats people." Turning briefly to a nearby attendant, he raised an eyebrow in mock concern. "Quick question. Am I the main course here, or a deep, guttural growl from the reptilian warrior silenced his playful inquiry. The human nodded, taking a cautious step back. Right. Cool. Good talk. The arena announcer's voice thundered across the combat pit, signaling the beginning of the fight in the harsh Zeri battle tongue. Without hesitation, the reptilian warrior surged forward with a terrifying speed, amplified by its biomechanical limbs. In a heartbeat, it closed the distance between them, claws slicing through the air. The human narrowly dodged, but one claw managed to graze his shoulder, tearing through fabric and skin and leaving a thin streak of red. From her vantage point, the alien girl leaned forward, sensing this battle's shift. Unlike the first encounter, the human appeared genuinely pressured, his trademark confidence momentarily shaken. The reptilian gladiator attacked relentlessly, each strike faster, more precise, leaving the human little room for his usual antics and mind games. Blows landed, a rib strike, a glancing thigh wound, and the crowd, sensing imminent bloodshed, roared louder. Yet even amid this relentless assault, the human's attitude transformed from playful to mildly annoyed. "All right," he muttered, sidestepping yet another lethal swipe. "I've fought a lot of things before. Drunk mercenaries, angry ex-girlfriends, even a guy who swore he was part crab." He dodged again, frustration creeping into his voice. "But you," he added critically, avoiding another vicious slash, "you fight like you've got something personal against gravity itself." Almost unnoticed, his defensive strategy shifted subtly. Rather than simply evading, he began redirecting the reptilian's momentum with minimal contact. Each strike the creature attempted was gently guided just off course, its strength and speed gradually becoming liabilities. A desperate swing missed wildly. A vicious downward strike found only empty air. The human's footwork became purposeful and precise, no longer retreating, but guiding the fight's flow. The reptilian warrior hissed with growing fury, stomping hard to pivot into one final, decisive lunge. That was precisely when the human struck. Rather than attacking directly, he seized the creature's outstretched arm and used its momentum against it, pulling it forward while dropping backward himself. The sudden maneuver unbalanced the creature, propelling it forward with uncontrollable force. An unsettling crunch echoed across the arena as its skull collided violently with the arena floor. An immediate hush overtook the audience. The human groaned softly, sitting up and rubbing the back of his head. "Ow," he muttered sheepishly. "Definitely wasn't part of the plan." Beside him lay the unconscious reptilian warrior, motionless. Surveying the stunned crowd, he flashed a cheerful thumbs up. "Still alive, though," he called out cheerfully. "Points for effort?" The alien girl felt an unsettling realization take hold. Initially convinced the human's previous victory had been mere luck, she now comprehended a deeper truth. It wasn't simply that he had won yet again, it was how he had done so. His victory came not through brute strength or technological superiority, but through adaptability, cunning, and an unyielding determination to survive. Worse still, the most hardened Zeri warriors in the stands weren't looking at him with disdain or contempt. They watched him with fascination, admiration even. She had witnessed countless warriors across innumerable battles, but none had ever shaken her understanding as thoroughly as this human. He wasn't merely a fighter. He was changing perceptions, altering the very essence of combat. In this profound moment of clarity, she understood that the human represented something entirely unprecedented in the arena's brutal history, a warrior whose greatest weapon was his mind. In the aftermath of the reptilian warrior's defeat, An air of tension and bewilderment swept through the vast arena. The alien girl found herself gripping the railing, her usually composed demeanor shattered by growing confusion. She watched intently as the defeated combatant was unceremoniously dragged away, its cybernetic implants flickering weakly. Meanwhile, the human remained seated casually, legs stretched out and arms propped behind him, gazing calmly at the overhead lights, as if reflecting on life's mysteries. After a moment of contemplation, he sighed dramatically. "So," he called out cheerfully, breaking the uncomfortable silence, "do I get a snack break now, or are we just going to keep tossing increasingly angry lizard folks my way?" The crowd's reaction was conflicted, some visibly enraged, their mandibles twitching with barely restrained anger, while others openly laughed, genuinely amused by his brazen irreverence. The alien girl's hands tightened on the railing as she recognized this was no longer simply entertainment or battle. This human was actively disrupting the core values and combat traditions deeply ingrained in Zeri culture. A sudden, powerful voice cut sharply through the murmurs, instantly silencing the arena. The alien girl stiffened, immediately recognizing its source, Warlord CX. The Warlord, legendary for his ruthless conquest and unmatched prowess, descended from the highest viewing platform. He was an imposing figure, nearly twice the height of the human, his crimson cloak flowing dramatically behind him. 4 muscular arms folded across an armored chest, his scarred visage partially concealed beneath a ceremonial mask. CX projected undeniable authority. "Enough of these games," CX declared, his resonant voice shaking the very foundations of the arena. "You have humiliated my warriors, human." Still seated comfortably in the dirt, the human squinted up at the imposing figure above him. "Me? Nah," he retorted lightly. "Pretty sure they handled that all by themselves." A collective gasp rippled through the audience. Even the alien girl found herself struggling to suppress the urge to cover her eyes in embarrassment. The fool was courting death. CX's jaw tightened visibly beneath his mask. "You believe yourself superior to us?" The human shrugged casually. "I believe I'm undefeated so far, which is more than your guys can say." He clicked his tongue. "So, yeah, kinda." The warlord, visibly struggling with controlled fury, stepped closer until his massive shadow loomed menacingly over the human. "Then you will face me." An eruption of chaos followed the warlord's declaration. It was unprecedented. Warlords never demeaned themselves by fighting prisoners. The human rubbed his head, seemingly unfazed. "All right, let me get this straight. You're the boss guy, yeah? The final boss?" "I am Warlord 110, he intoned gravely, "Slayer of 5 moons, conqueror of the outer reaches." The human whistled appreciatively. "Fancy titles. You know, once I got thrown out of bars on 3 different planets in one night." Several younger warriors chuckled despite themselves, earning them harsh glares from their elders. CX's expression darkened further. "You will not be laughing when I crush you," he promised darkly. Rising to his feet, the human brushed dirt from his clothing, rolling his shoulders with deliberate casualness. "Oh, buddy," he responded with infuriating cheerfulness, "you're really not gonna like this." From the very outset, the battle with 110 differed starkly from the previous matches. The war beast had brute force, the reptilian speed, but CX possessed both in terrifying abundance, combined with precise tactical discipline. The warlord advanced swiftly, his 4 powerful arms delivering synchronized, devastating blows, each strike shattering the arena floor beneath them. The human narrowly evaded, rolling and darting desperately away from each relentless assault. The alien girl felt her pulse quicken as she observed CX methodically cornering the human, cutting off escape routes and reducing his room to maneuver. The human's breathing grew ragged, his playful demeanor replaced by genuine strain. A thunderous strike from 110 finally landed, sending the human hurtling into the arena wall with bone-jarring force. The crowd erupted in thunderous cheers. Gasping in evident pain, the human groaned audibly, "Okay, that one I definitely felt." Without pause, CX pressed his advantage, descending upon the human with meteoric strikes, each blow narrowly missed as the human rolled sluggishly, his injuries visibly hampering his mobility. For a moment, it seemed inevitable. This fight was over. Yet, despite evident agony, the human suddenly smiled, a fierce, exhilarated grin that startled even CX momentarily. Wiping blood from his lips, he laughed weakly. "This is the most fun I've had all week." Then, astonishingly, he charged. No one expected such bold defiance from someone battered and clearly outmatched. CX momentarily faltered, caught off guard by the audacity. The human seized this moment, diving low and sliding skillfully under the warlord's massive frame, precisely placing one foot to trip CX mid-stride. Already off balance from his attempted attack, CX stumbled, providing an opening the human eagerly exploited. Leaping agilely onto the warlord's massive back, the human wrapped his arms around CX's thick neck, gripping desperately. The warlord roared furiously, thrashing violently and slamming himself repeatedly against the arena walls, attempting to dislodge the resilient attacker. But the human held on tenaciously, each passing second sapping 160's formidable strength. Gradually, the warlord's movements slowed, his enormous frame faltering until finally his knees buckled beneath him. With an exhausted gasp, 110 collapsed unconscious to the arena floor. Stunned silence enveloped the spectators as the human slowly sat up from the fallen warlord's back, his chest heaving. A single clenched fist rose triumphantly into the air as he declared breathlessly, "Undefeated, still." From her observation point, the alien girl felt utterly paralyzed, unable to comprehend what she had just witnessed. She realized now what had made the human so dangerously effective. It was not superior strength, unmatched speed, or exceptional skill. It was something far more unsettling, an absolute refusal to accept defeat, combined with a reckless abandon that only came from having nothing left to lose. As she watched the unconscious form of the legendary warlord 110 sprawled across the sand, her mind raced, grappling with the ramifications. No warrior in history had achieved what this human had just accomplished. He had dismantled centuries of entrenched combat doctrine, reshaped perceptions, and instilled doubt among the proud Zeri warriors. Yet perhaps most troubling of all was how effortlessly he'd managed it, with jokes, taunts, and an attitude that defied every rule they held sacred. As attendants rushed to tend to 110, the human slowly rose to his feet, swaying slightly but unbroken. Meeting the alien girl's gaze once more, his expression shifted briefly. Acknowledgement, challenge, and something indefinable mingled within. And in that fleeting moment, the alien girl recognized a chilling truth. She had watched countless warriors fight, had admired bravery, cunning, and strength. Yet never before had she encountered someone who fought, not just to survive, but seemingly to rewrite the rules entirely. This human, battered yet victorious, had done just that. And now, nothing would ever be the same. In the immediate aftermath of Warlord 110's unexpected defeat, an unprecedented silence fell over the vast arena. The imposing figure of the Zeri leader, legendary for conquering countless worlds, lay sprawled unconscious, motionless upon the blood-stained sand. Beside him stood the human, battered yet undeniably victorious, breathing heavily, his body marked by bruises and cuts, yet his expression radiating undeniable triumph. The alien girl felt her heart pound painfully in her chest as she struggled to process the unbelievable scene below. This was not how it was supposed to end. This was inconceivable. The Zeri culture had built its entire legacy upon principles of unyielding strength, relentless discipline, and uncompromising combat traditions. Yet this single human, armed only with wit, resilience, and audacity, had completely shattered that deeply rooted belief system in mere moments. Around her, chaos erupted among the watching warriors and warlords. Some shouted angrily, demanding punishment or retribution. Others murmured curiously, intrigued by what they had just witnessed, an anomaly that challenged their fundamental understanding of warfare. Never before, in recorded history, had a human managed such a feat, and the implications were profound and unsettling. The human groaned softly as he straightened up, clutching his injured ribs. "Well, that was fun," he called out to no one in particular, his voice bright despite his visible exhaustion. "So, do I win something? A prize? A shiny trophy, maybe?" Below, Zeri medics quickly surrounded Warlord 110, their bioreaders scanning his prone form. Abruptly, the Warlord stirred, regaining consciousness with a furious growl, shoving aside the startled medical staff. Everyone in the arena tensed, anticipating renewed conflict. Yet, 110 made no aggressive move. Instead, he regarded the human with a complex, unreadable expression. Meeting the Warlord's gaze, the human offered a lazy salute, grinning broadly. "Good morning, sunshine. Sleep well?" For a long, tense moment, 110 did not reply. Slowly he stood, towering once more over the human, muscles trembling from lingering shock and exhaustion. The alien girl held her breath, certain violence would resume. But then, astonishingly, the Warlord did the unthinkable. He laughed, not bitterly, not mockingly, but genuinely, warmly. With a massive hand, 110 clapped the human on the shoulder, nearly toppling him. "You fight like a mad animal, human," he declared approvingly. "I'll take that as a compliment," the human responded lightly, clearly relieved. CX turned to face the gathered crowd, raising his voice powerfully. "This one is no ordinary warrior," he proclaimed firmly. "He has earned respect, and respect must be acknowledged." The arena erupted, some spectators cheering enthusiastically, others shouting objections, but the shift was undeniable. The human had ceased to be a mere joke or entertainment. He had become something far more significant, a catalyst of profound change within Zeri culture itself. In the days following the remarkable battle, the alien girl observed transformations spreading swiftly through the barracks, training grounds, and war rooms. Warriors, young and seasoned alike, began experimenting, deviating from the traditional rigid forms, embracing unpredictability. For the first time, she witnessed warriors debating openly, testing unconventional methods inspired directly by the human's audacious strategies. Even the mighty warlords were shaken, their authority subtly challenged by the new ideas proliferating throughout their ranks. The alien girl found herself at the center of numerous tense discussions, with military strategists wrestling to interpret this unforeseen evolution. "It's merely a phase," one advisor muttered dismissively, "a temporary distraction." Yet deep within, she understood it was far more dangerous and enduring than mere distraction. The human had sown seeds of doubt, challenging every entrenched belief about strength, discipline, and victory that the Zeri held sacred. Confronting the human directly, she found him lounging casually on a crate in the lower barracks, eating something pungently offensive to her senses. Crossing her arms, she addressed him firmly. "You are changing them." He paused mid-bite, raising an eyebrow curiously. "Me?" He shrugged nonchalantly. "Look, I'm just trying not to die. The rest, that's their problem, not mine." "You mock warfare, refuse to respect it," she accused sharply. His lips curved upward slowly into a thoughtful smirk. "And yet, here I am, still standing." She bristled, struggling to conceal her irritation. "They are watching you, learning from you." He tilted his head slightly, genuine curiosity in his gaze. "Why does that bother you?" Her jaw tightened involuntarily. "Because abandoning tradition weakens us." He chuckled softly, shaking his head. "Strength isn't just hitting harder," he pointed out calmly. "If that were true, your warlord would have crushed me in seconds." Stiffening, she struggled to argue, but he leaned forward, sincerity coloring his tone. "Your people think combat is about dominance. It's not. It's about survival. I don't win by overpowering. I win by staying alive." A cold knot twisted inside her, recognizing uncomfortable truths in his words. The worst part, she realized, was that he was correct. A cold knot twisted inside her, recognizing uncomfortable truths in his words. The worst part, she realized, was that he was correct. Later, she stood before the Council of Warlords, her posture rigid, her expression carefully controlled. "We must resolve this," she declared decisively. "You suggest we execute him?" One warlord snarled disdainfully. Hesitation briefly flickered across her face. Despite her disdain, the idea felt strangely unjustified. She glanced at 110. The warlord, now prominently seated among them, still visibly bruised, but undeniably influential. A long silence enveloped the council until 110 spoke, his voice measured and decisive. "Or perhaps we learn from him." Stunned whispers filled the chamber. The alien girl felt her heart accelerate as the truth settled around her like a lead weight. There would be no turning back from this moment. The human had achieved something extraordinary, irrevocable. In the weeks following the Council's historic decision, the human gradually transitioned from captive gladiator to respected teacher, his unconventional methods captivating younger warriors. They sparred against him eagerly, embracing his strange blend of humor, agility, and unpredictability. His teachings began reshaping their combat philosophy fundamentally, emphasizing adaptability and innovation over brute force. Yet not all welcomed these radical shifts. Resistance inevitably surfaced among veterans, clinging stubbornly to tradition. One evening, 3 experienced warriors confronted the human angrily outside the training grounds. "You disgrace our traditions," one snarled accusingly. Sighing wearily, the human rubbed his face. "Oh, here we go." "You weaken our people," another declared aggressively. He raised an eyebrow skeptically. "Really? Because I distinctly recall beating a fully armed warrior without any weapons myself." Infuriated, the veteran lunged ferociously but predictably. The human calmly sidestepped, tripped the attacker effortlessly, sending him sprawling into the dirt. The remaining warriors hesitated, suddenly uncertain. Spreading his arms wide, the human issued a simple challenge. "Go ahead, attack again. See how that ends." They didn't. The encounter ended swiftly, decisively. More dangerous than simply defeating them physically, he had implanted doubt, shaking their belief in traditional combat superiority. Facing the council once more, the alien girl addressed her peers with grim determination. This human disrupts everything. CX, seated calmly, met her gaze squarely. Precisely. That is why we must learn from him. A cold silence fell over the room. Gathering courage, she asked, "And if we do?" "Then we evolve," CX responded gravely, words resonating deeply within her. The path forward was clear and irrevocable. That night, she confronted the human alone, beneath the vast, star-lit sky. "You've changed everything," she stated quietly, uncertainty coloring her tone. He glanced upward thoughtfully, then turned toward her with a gentle smile. "Not my fault. Your people never thought about dodging before." "You disrespect war," she persisted quietly. He grew serious then, gazing intently into her eyes. "I respect war deeply, but I don't worship it. Do you ever wonder why humans fight differently?" She hesitated, defensive, yet intrigued. "You lack discipline." He shook his head softly. "Because we understand war isn't glorious. It's survival. Those who survive don't fight hardest. They fight smartest." She had no argument left, recognizing truth in his words. And for the first time, she realized the profound legacy this single human had left, not merely in victories within the arena, but in the very soul of the Zeri themselves. In the wake of Warlord 110's unprecedented defeat, a palpable transformation began to ripple throughout the Zeri community. Warriors across the ranks, both young and seasoned, felt compelled to reconsider centuries-old combat doctrines, opening themselves to new, previously unimaginable techniques inspired by the enigmatic human. The alien girl watched quietly from her elevated vantage point, the training grounds alive with fresh energy. Young warriors no longer practiced rigidly defined forms. Instead, they sparred creatively, testing unconventional strategies, weaving unpredictability and flexibility into their routines. At the heart of this revolutionary shift stood the human, teaching not with rigid rules, but through dynamic demonstrations, laughter, and a seemingly irrepressible spirit. "You fight as if you're trying to impress someone," he remarked teasingly to one young warrior, effortlessly dodging a textbook takedown. "Relax, move naturally. You're in a fight, not a performance." The warrior, visibly frustrated, glared fiercely. "My father is a warlord." The human smiled broadly, undaunted. "And I bet he's never dodged a punch his entire life." Amused laughter echoed among the trainees. The alien girl frowned, her discomfort evident. She wasn't entirely sure what disturbed her more, that the warriors listened intently to the human, or that he seemed consistently, irritatingly correct. However, acceptance was far from universal. Veteran warriors, proud bearers of tradition, perceived the human's influence as dangerous, corrosive to their proud heritage. Resistance culminated one evening as a trio of seasoned Zeri warriors confronted the human after training. "You disgrace our traditions," the first warrior hissed furiously. The human sighed tiredly, pinching the bridge of his nose. "Oh, great, this again." A second warrior stepped aggressively forward. "You have made our warriors weak." "Interesting," he replied dryly, eyeing them skeptically. "Because last I checked, I beat your strongest warriors without using a weapon." Incensed, the first warrior lunged fiercely. Rather than countering aggressively, the human simply stepped aside, redirecting the attack with minimal effort, sending the warrior sprawling face first into the dirt. He addressed the remaining two warriors with open palms and a calm voice. "Feel free to try next. See if the outcome differs." They hesitated, uncertainty overtaking their expressions. The battle concluded swiftly, not because they were defeated physically, but because the human had instilled a devastating psychological blow, planting seeds of self-doubt. These confrontations sparked intense debate within the War Council. Standing amidst warlords and strategists, the alien girl voiced her concerns firmly. "We must resolve this crisis definitively." One older warlord growled menacingly, "Are you suggesting execution?" She hesitated, discomforted by the suggestion. Despite her initial animosity, the thought of killing him felt inexplicably wrong. Across the chamber, Warlord 110, battered but still commanding respect, cleared his throat meaningfully. Or 110 spoke deliberately, his words resonating powerfully. "We learn from him." His statement ignited immediate murmurs of dissent and intrigue alike, spreading quickly through the gathered leaders. The alien girl's heart quickened. In apprehension, CX's declaration had opened a path from which there could be no retreat. The human's presence had irreversibly disrupted their cultural ethos, forcing a critical juncture in Zeri history. Days passed, and training grounds began to reflect a changed atmosphere more profoundly. Warriors experimented boldly, increasingly confident in blending traditional strength with newfound agility and cunning. Observing quietly, the alien girl saw genuine enjoyment emerging among trainees, an unprecedented notion in Zeri combat practices. She sought the human out later that evening, finding him alone under the vast, starlit sky. Her approach was measured, expression guarded. "You have altered everything," she stated quietly, struggling to mask her unease. He glanced upwards briefly, smiling softly. "Not my fault no one here ever considered dodging before." "You disrespect war," she pressed insistently. His humor vanished, replaced with profound seriousness. "You misunderstand. I respect war deeply. I simply refuse to worship it." He paused, turning to meet her gaze. "Ever wondered why humans approach combat differently?" She hesitated, uncertain how to respond. "You lack discipline." He shook his head gently, smiling sadly. "Humans understand war isn't glory, it's survival. Those who survive aren't the strongest or most ruthless, but the smartest. It's about adaptability, cleverness, staying alive." His sincerity left her speechless, unable to muster any credible counter-argument. Silently, she retreated, troubled and introspective, wondering if the core values she'd cherished her entire life had suddenly become obsolete. In the War Council chamber, debates grew fierce, reflecting widespread anxiety and intrigue. One warlord declared vehemently, "This human undermines our traditions, disrupts everything we value." CX, calm and measured, countered firmly, "Yet he survives. That is precisely what we must study." A quiet descended, heavy with realization. Bravely, the alien girl stepped forward, posing the question that lingered uneasily in everyone's thoughts. "And if we embrace this change?" CX regarded her steadily, resolve solidifying visibly within him. "Then we evolve." The simple statement sent chills through the room, marking an undeniable shift in their future. The path was set, irrevocably and inextricably bound to the human's disruptive legacy. That night, she found him again, standing alone on a viewing deck, contemplating the expansive sky. "You've changed everything," she admitted quietly. He smiled softly, eyes distant. "Not intentionally, just wanted to survive." "You've forced our warriors to question themselves." He shrugged gently. "Good. Real strength emerges from questioning, from adapting." "You mock everything we believe," she murmured quietly. He shook his head resolutely. "I challenge it, sure. Mockery is too simple. War isn't about dominance. It's about survival. The strongest warriors aren't those who hit hardest, but those who understand how to adapt, who fight intelligently. For the first time, she truly understood his perspective, realizing painfully that her culture had missed something vital, something intrinsic to survival. Doubt clouded her convictions, reshaping her understanding of warfare profoundly. That evening, she returned to observe the training grounds, watching the human guiding young warriors with characteristic ease and humor. He demonstrated techniques that contradicted traditional doctrines, yet proved undeniably effective. His students absorbed these lessons eagerly, applying them immediately with visible success. Even veterans began quietly integrating elements of unpredictability and adaptability, noticeably more formidable in practice combat sessions. Zeri warriors, once rigid and predictable, now embraced spontaneity, effectively outmaneuvering their traditional counterparts. Months passed, and gradually the Zeri culture shifted profoundly. Combat doctrine became fluid, adapting swiftly, strategically, and ingeniously. Warriors became unpredictable, outmaneuvering opponents through intellect as often as brute force. Victories multiplied, accompanied by unprecedented morale and enthusiasm. In the heart of it all remained the human, perpetually cheerful, laughing amid training bouts, easily dodging attacks, teaching a generation of warriors an invaluable, radical lesson: how to think dynamically amidst combat. Observing from afar, the alien girl exhaled deeply. She realized reluctantly that he had become something she never expected: a genuine mentor and teacher. One quiet evening, she found him alone, gazing thoughtfully at the star-filled sky. Approaching softly, she stood beside him, saying simply, "You've changed everything." He smiled gently, gazing upward still. "Number you chose to change. I only showed you options." She sighed, reflecting deeply. "You mock war, defy its traditions." His response was gentle, yet firm. "I respect war, but not blindly, understanding that survival, not dominance, defines victory. That's real strength." She turned toward him curiously. "Why do you fight?" He met her eyes with sincerity. "Because I must. Not for glory, not for conquest, for survival. Fighting smart beats, fighting hard, every time." His words resonated deeply, irrevocably reshaping her worldview. The Zeri warriors hadn't just begun adopting new techniques, they had started understanding a different philosophy entirely. As months passed, the alien girl witnessed the culmination of this transformation. The Zeri warriors evolved, embracing adaptability and innovation. Their victories soared, their culture strengthened by a newfound openness to change and adaptability. The human's legacy became undeniable: an unconventional teacher who, through humor, resilience, and wisdom, had profoundly altered an entire civilization's path forward.